All right. Well, thank you for that great introduction. And I'm, super excited to be here. I do lots of webinars, lots of seminars. I'm not trying to say how good I am. I'm just constantly trying to get get better and reach as many students as I can. So thank you again. We're going to talk a little bit tonight about academic success strategies. And I'm going to try to get through some things as quickly as I can. And what I mean by that is I'm a talker. And so I can go literally 2 hours or 3 hours discussing different topics that have to do with academic success or career development. I've been with the university now about 21 years. I've been a recruiter. I've been an academic advisor. I've been a retention coordinator. I've done all sorts of things that pertain to student success. And I feel like I've helped hundreds bordering into the thousands of students, along with my colleagues, move through to graduation. And so whether you're taking classes face-to-face or in this case online through Global Campus, I'm always happy to talk to this population. So I'll go through some things, tell you a little bit about myself, and then we'll move into the nitty-gritty stuff. Reminder, questions can go through the chat room, and we'll try to get to all questions as we can and go from there. So a little bit about me. So when I say about me, that's an acronym for a little bit of what's in my mind and my experiences. But I want you all to have an idea of who's talking to you. It's not just about me throwing titles out there and my education and then go over the topic. I want you to know I have really taken aim on helping students succeed. And when I say taking aim on helping students succeed, I have aspirations, inspirations, and motivations. Again, there's another acronym. But my aspirations have to do with my folks. And so what you see right there, that is the Wharton County Teachers Institute. And so my great-grandmother, and that's right there, and my great-grandfather, they're back there, and they were teachers, college degrees in the early 1900s. And then my great-grandmother's parents are sitting up front here, Sam and Lottie Martin. They were also college graduates and got their teaching degrees. And so, again, this is in the early 1900s, right around 1903, 1904. And everyone in the picture has their college degrees. And everyone in the picture was born into slavery in the United States. And so the aspiration that I have is that with the opportunity that we get, when I look back at my folks, they did the best that they could with the opportunities that they have. And they were responsible for educating a lot of people in their county. So a legacy of education was started a long time ago in my family, and I aim to honor that. Let me get rid of that stuff if I can here. So it's not just them. My grandmother, my mother, they were all college graduates, and they were all teachers. Okay, so I'm trying to get rid of, sorry. A little malfunction there. There we go. Okay, so they're I aspire to be just like them, helping as many people as I can, anytime, any place, anywhere. My inspirations, that has to do with my mother and father. Again, my mother was a school teacher. My father was a defense attorney. So advocating for students and instructing people, that's what I do. I'm inspired by my parents. They've both gone on to glory, but I live on in their legacy. And this is just me in the middle finishing another degree. I'm working on a fourth degree, and it's a doctorate in educational administration. And if you would talk to anyone that knew me in middle school and high school, they would not believe I've gone this far with education. But I have aspirations and I have inspirations. And you'll see why I'm going over this. We'll get back to it later. My motivations. What I aspire to be and what inspires me has nothing to do with my motivations. My motivations have to do with having a chance every day to work with students. So anytime, I'm like a musician that's looking for gigs. Anywhere I can get a gig, I'm going to go play. Well, for me, anytime I can talk about success, I'm going to go do it. I'm completely focused on having another opportunity. That's what wakes me up in the morning every single day. Okay, so now you see how I take aim on life. This is how I take aim on life, with my aspirations, my inspirations, and my motivations. All right. So again, we're going to talk a little bit about what I think is ways to how to increase learning, some study strategies, and we might mix all that together by the time we're done here. And then 5 ways to overcome test anxiety, according to me, James Bledsoe. There's a lot of stuff out there, but why don't we go ahead and start with that? And so I said that I would give 5 ways to overcome test anxiety, but by the time I'm done here, you'll see that I'm not telling the whole truth, that actually I'm going to give you 10 things. But what I have here is a diagram here on the left that talks about test anxiety. And so I took this not to represent what I'm going to, as though I did this, but I took this from the website of Louisiana State University School of Nursing, because they talk about things that when you can feel test anxiety coming on. And about 1/3 of people get anxiety before they have to do some sort of assessment. All right, whether it's a test, an exam, get up and speak in front of the class, or in this case, speak on Zoom, give presentations, display their knowledge. And so what are the effects of that? This diagram talks about an inability to concentrate. Some people feel nausea, anger, headaches, things going wrong with your heart, fast and shallow breathing, fear, frustration, feelings of impending doom. As it relates to any kind of anxiety, and I'm not going to ask you to identify anything, but does anyone feel anxiety or extreme nervousness when they're about to do something school-related? If you could use that chat, let me know that you're there before tests. If you're willing to talk about when you experience it, that's cool too. I love that. So yeah, I mean, everybody feels it at some point in their life. And so again, yeah. One happened this week. Yeah. Everybody, has different educational and professional backgrounds, and we're at different places in our life. And so, yeah, I mean, we all experience those kinds of things. I'm just letting some of these come in. Speaking in front of large class. Yeah. Again, if you talk to someone that knew me in high school and they saw all the talking that I do, I think I've given 1,000 campus tours in my 28 years in higher ed. I was basically a mute when I was in high school. I didn't talk. So no, I totally understand. So when we look at these kinds of diagrams, again, this is some of the things that you start to feel. Okay. And so we'll go to the School of Nursing there in just a second. We'll come back to that. But what I want to show you now is, and I like to rhyme, Bledsoe's top 10 that helped him. Okay. One thing that I do to try to lessen the anxiety that builds up, okay? Number 1 is getting enough sleep. And, sometimes that's easier said than done, but when you have a lack of sleep, it just affects your whole approach to life. And so I really value my sleep. Even if I can only get 5 hours, I'm going to get those 5 hours of sleep, right? And, but I'm really trying to get 7 or 8 hours of sleep so that when I sit in my chair, when I get my mic going so that I can talk to students, I am 110%. I'm ready to go. Leading up to this presentation, there was no nervousness. There was no anxiety. I've had my sleep. I'm ready to go. You eat the right foods and the beverages. And what I mean by that is, sometimes it's easier for nervousness and anxiety to set in if we've been drinking the wrong things. And I'm not going to go too deep on that, but you want to watch what you're drinking and make sure you're sticking with water. Make sure you're eating the right foods. You're eating healthy. I'm not going to go into what's healthy. We all know what I mean by that. You can look all over the internet and find techniques for calming yourself down, right? But what I'm trying to stress is I always tried to get my state of mind, not just to a point of relaxation, not just so that I had clarity, but so that I could refocus myself. Because Sure, we're always going to get a little nervous. And if I told the truth, sure, maybe I was nervous for about 15 seconds when I couldn't find the passcode to log into Zoom about 10 minutes ago. But I just breathed through it and refocused my mind. That's the key. Getting your state of mind. When I say for number 3, focused, SON, I'm talking about your state of mind. So you can think about what is it that relaxes you so that when you start to feel those symptoms or, that we talked about over in the left-hand side, you have to now stop it by using your relaxation techniques. Sometimes it's music for some people. Sometimes it's walking. It could be anything. Some things it's scribbling on paper. Whatever it is, you got to find a way to get yourself relaxed, even if it's breathing techniques. And then you've got to get your mind clear. And then you've got to focus on what's at hand. And that's the state of mind that you want to be in when you feel that anxiety coming on. So that's really alluding to internal dialogue. Right before anxiety sets in, usually there's internal dialogue. So if all of a sudden we had 140 academic advisors today in a meeting on Zoom, and the vice president of student affairs called on me and asked me to give my opinion on something. And right away, maybe the first 3 seconds after she asked me the question, I wanted to say, well, I don't have anything to say. I'm not ready. I'm not going to say it right. And immediately I stopped and replaced those negative thoughts, that internal dialogue, with positive. I thought of something positive and said, you know what? I've got all my colleagues in front of me and they're going to get a chance to hear me speak. Everyone talks about, my webinars, and none of my colleagues ever get a chance to hear me speak. And so all of a sudden I got really excited. And so then I, started talking about and gave my perspective. So I cut off those negative thoughts by replacing it with something positive. I thought of something positive, and it just kept me from going into that state of where I might have passed up and said, oh, Mary Jo Gonzalez, I don't have anything to say. Or, you think of a reason because your mind is blank, right? And so number 5 talks about those breathing exercises. You've probably all heard that before, but I'm telling you, it works. I mean, even when you're feeling frustration, let's not even talk about anxiety, but even when you're feeling frustration or anger or anything that's happening before you're about to be assessed, right? Whether it's a test or whatever you got to do, get up and speak. The breathing exercises, finding your rhythm through getting your breathing in order, because when you start to get tense and the anxiety is setting in, it affects your breathing. And like I say, probably half the people here tonight have read things, maybe all of us have, about how test anxiety or getting nervous about something can affect your breathing, whether you're hyperventilating or you're starting to get lightheaded because you're not taking in enough oxygen. So getting your breathing together, I practice it every day. Okay, it's just part of what I do, just to stay in a good flow, in a good rhythm. And then once I'm there, you have to think about what keeps you from getting to that state where you're nervous about maybe what you don't know is your preparation. And so that state of mind of thinking every time you're asked to do something by a professor or by a team or a group that you're on, you're getting another chance to display your knowledge. That's what number 6 is talking about. So you always have to prepare, and we're going to talk about what it means to prepare. But look at every opportunity as a chance to display your knowledge, whether it's a multiple choice test, getting up and speaking, public speaking, taking some sort of exam that maybe is more of a written, writing your answers out. It's a chance to display your knowledge. And I learned that early in life. Opportunities to display your knowledge or display your skills. I look forward to it. And a big way to prepare yourself to display your knowledge, and we'll talk about this again in a few minutes, is avoiding procrastination. I read something that said 75% of college students procrastinate when it comes to studying and get themselves prepared to display their knowledge. And then I read some more stuff, some recent stuff through Washington State University's health services, and they say 98% of students will procrastinate. They reported that they procrastinated getting ready to get their assignments done or to get ready for tests, and that's what caused a big part of the anxiety, what they think. Another way to get around the anxiety is taking the practice quizzes on your own. You know, when you have a lot of chapters to read and before you take an exam in the book, usually you can take quizzes. Take those quizzes. Take them over and over again, right? And so that you're just getting yourself used to the environment, what's going to happen in terms of when it's time to take the test. And even when you have to do public speaking, I've got something for that we're going to talk about in a minute too. So number 8 talks about teach the subject. And we're going to look at YouTube here in just a moment. But when I talk about teach the subject, I really believe that you know something and the odds of you getting nervous about it when you have to display your knowledge are almost zero when you can teach it. So I'll ask people sometimes and they're like, what are you talking about? I'll say, so think of the favorite kind of food that you like to cook. Everybody can cook to some degree, right? You can prepare a meal, right? If you think of the most favorite thing that you like to prepare for yourself, okay? Or maybe it's for other people. Now, if you take that thought, and if I asked you right now, explain to me how you make it. Explain to me how you prepare it. You'd go through step by step. You know, you add this, you add that, you get the bowls out, you mix this, you hold this over here, you get the temperature of the oven to this, that, and the other. You'd go through it like it's knowing the back of your hand, right? And so what I'm going to show you is an assignment here a little bit later about going on YouTube and practicing teaching it to someone else. It's an imaginary thing where you go on YouTube and record yourself, right? Just teaching something to somebody else. But again, you're the only one that's going to see the results. And so as you're learning this stuff, you're reading things, you're trying to get things in your mind. Sometimes when you get yourself to the point where you can teach it to someone else, you can actually explain it to someone else, then you know it's sticking up there. This is all building your confidence as you go into different test type situations. And then the other thing is visualizing success. Visualizing success and putting yourself in the picture. The only reason I started off by having this picture of our former president, Dr. Elson Floyd, who I respect and admire, he's gone on to glory, but I love this picture of him at graduation. To me, when I was in undergrad, and I was an older student when I was in undergrad, I thought no matter what week it was or what month it was or what semester it was or what I was going through, I always envisioned myself going across the stage. So even when I felt myself getting discouraged and maybe wanting to give up or try something new or try something different, I always had this vision in my mind of graduating. I just did. And so that's what I mean by visualize success. Visualize success for yourself. Put yourself in the picture, right? So that whatever you're facing, you know, you don't want to give up. You want to push yourself forward and get yourself ready to do what you got to do. And then the last thing is exercise daily. It's a very, very important part of getting your brain in the right state of mind, right? So that you're relaxed and you're ready to learn more, but then you're ready to get it out, meaning display your knowledge. So any questions so far on test anxiety? Like I say, we'll have time at the end to go over some questions. I know I'm going through a lot of stuff, but what I want to recommend is, and I can probably put this in the chat room there. Let me see if I can find the page. Okay. If you can give me a thumbs up, Andrea, can you see the LSU health page? All right. Okay, so this is the page right here. I'll put this in the chat room so you can go to it for yourself. A lot of times, you know, there's so much information out there. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here. I'll put this in the chat room so everyone has that. This is some good stuff here. And what they do, they go over some strategies to help you reduce test anxiety. And so I'm actually going to talk a little bit more about some of these preparation and time management here as we go on and reflecting on past successes. But The point I'm trying to get across by giving you this is sometimes you do have to look at what the university is providing for you, right? In terms of test anxiety. A lot of this stuff is backed by therapists and psychiatrists, people that are licensed. And so the information they put out there, really take it to heart and, go look at it. So I happen to admire this one that LSU put out, but we're going to take a look here in just a minute. Washington State University has a great page too, but I want you all to see this, where I got this from, because again, it's all over the internet. It's not hard to find. Okay. And say, okay, so that's where I want to go with test anxiety, because again, I'm not licensed or anything like that, but I do want to show you what worked for me when I was an undergrad, and even to this day as I'm working on my doctorate degree, those things that work for me. All right. I might as well now jump to Cougar Health Services. So again, sometimes addressing things such as test anxiety or any type of nervousness before you get ready to display your knowledge, you can look on your health services website for the university. And let's see if I can find the one that's for Cougar Health there. Even with Washington State University, it doesn't matter if you're global campus or in Spokane or Vancouver, it doesn't matter. Cougar Health Services is for everyone. So you can look on the main page for WSU. And I just want you to have an idea of the services that are here. So you get signed up. You see here stress management tips on your phone, overcoming stress perfection. They've got tips for you here. Tips for overcoming for perfectionism. All right. That's some things that lead to anxiety. It's good stuff that's here. Again, I'm trying to emphasize the resources. They're doing pilot projects that involved 150 Cougs, but Cougars receiving uplifting messages throughout the day, throughout the week. You can read through this in your spare time. Getting personalized messages that deal with stress. Again, all of these things are here on the page with Cougar Health Services. And again, I want you to be aware that these things are here, okay? Lots of good stuff for all Cougs. Learn how to prevent and recover from burnout. All right, we'll talk about that a little bit later in some of my slides that are coming up. But very important, burnout can also lead to anxiety. So again, just knowing where the resources are can be very important as well. All right, so we've gone through that, and now let's come over here. Let's move a little bit to learning and studying. And how many of you, I'm dating myself, but maybe I'm not, I don't know. Does anybody remember the Cookie Monster? Yes or no? Do we get anybody in the... Of course, James, we remember the Cookie Monster. All right. Well, when I was a kid, this is going to sound like a really goofy example, but one thing that bothered me when I was a kid, so someone says, I am the Cookie Monster. I love it. William, nice one. One thing that bothered me when I was a kid was that when I would watch the Cookie Monster eat, he'd have a big plate of cookies, and then he'd start to devour them. And all the cookies would get every place, but in his mouth. And I know the whole thing was supposed to be, no, he's eating the cookies. But as a kid, I saw it. I was like, man, most of the cookies aren't going in his mouth. And so I thought about that as a professional. Isn't that how we all cram? At some point in our life, all of us have had to cram for a test. And the one thing we have to remember is that you try to get all that information in and study at the last minute, a lot of that information is going to go right out the sides of your brain, just like the Cookie Monster trying to get these cookies in. There's none of it going in his body. That information is not going in the brain when you try to cram. And a big reason for that is you have to think about how the brain learn. How does your brain learn? Right? How do you digest information? And so when you think about eating a sandwich, all of us maybe have eaten a foot-long sandwich before or watched someone try to eat it. Now, this person right here, he's not going to stuff that whole sandwich in his mouth, or if he does, it's all going to come back out, right? Because that's just not how the human body digests food. The human body digests food in small bites, and those bites are chewed. and then they're swallowed, right? And so small bites. So how does the brain digest information? Think about it. It's the same way in small bites, right? So cramming doesn't work as well as digesting things in small bites so that you get to a point where you have really mastered the material. So this brings into the conversation time management, where again, I got some stuff here that's going to lead up to this, but you got to study things in small bites so that the brain can digest it, so that the brain can move it from short-term memory to long-term memory. That's key. When you cram, you're just moving everything to short-term memory, and then take the test, and maybe some of it comes out, maybe some of it doesn't, because short-term memory is what it is. You're going to lose it, right? And then even if you take the exam and then it's followed up by maybe some of that material is on the next test 2 weeks later, right? Some of the material from exam 1 is on exam 2. Because you committed the material in exam 1 to short-term memory, it's out of there. So by the time you get to exam 2, if it's comprehensive, forget it. So you want to think about long-term memory, converting things to long-term memory, small bites versus big bites, okay? So here's a study skills tip number 2. Learning something new now this is how I feel about it. It's always like learning a new language. It's always like learning a new language. And anytime I've had to learn a new language or, acquaint myself with one, I try to immerse myself in that language, right? I try to do everything I can. I listen to videos, I read books, I listen to music, I listen to other people talk. I try to converse with them. If I'm learning a new language, I'm immersing myself in it. I'm not worried about making mistakes, right? I'm just trying to increase my learning to where it gets to the point where, I'm really seeing the growth in this area. Another thing is, how many of you take the time, and I know this is tough with the Zoom situations, to have professor FaceTime, meaning all professors have to have office hours. Do you all feel like you're taking advantage of professor FaceTime? Yeah, Mimi Jones, yep, helps so much. There's another suggestion. Mimi, thank you. Even staying after class, it helps. It helps. I can tell you as an instructor myself, okay, those students that stay after class, I will give them bonus information. I will give them tips. You just do. As an instructor, you just do. When you see someone's effort, you want to reward it, right? Now, it's different if you wait until the last final exam. You've never come to talk to me, and you're just coming now to ask for extra credit or anything. No, that's different. But from day 1, week 1, month 1, I see your effort. I'm going to reward that. I'm going to give you little tips. I'm going to ask you questions on how it's going, but you got to look for that FaceTime. Now, let's just say you got the situation where, working full time during those hours. Here's what I would do. And I'm being completely honest about this because, like I say, I can relate. I'm in a doctorate program and I'm working full time, right? You got to talk to the professor and you got to see if there's something you can do so that you can. Is it special treatment? No, it's not special treatment. It's more accommodating and that you're willing to learn. You're not waiting till the last final exam to say, hey, I'd like to talk to you. But actually conversing with the professor and telling that professor a little bit about your situation and asking if there's some time that the professor can set aside, maybe 30 minutes, so that it's not only office hours, but it's also by appointment. And it's hard to believe a professor that once the professor hears your situation, and I'm not just talking to you, Melissa, I'm talking to everybody. It's hard to believe that if a professor knows your situation, that they won't try to work with you and give you maybe 30 minutes or 45 minutes, every other week or something like that, based on your work schedule, okay? And then on top of that, if that's not working, you feel like you really do need the FaceTime with the professor, that's when you get with your academic advisor and see if the academic advisor can intervene. Sometimes advisors have that kind of influence. So in any case, yeah, good points to bring up about that whole professor FaceTime, but don't feel like you're alone when you want to maybe talk with the professor to clarify something. Sometimes if you meet with an academic advisor, they can help get that conversation opened up for you or arranged in a way that's, more agreeable to your work schedule. We're going to talk a little bit about reading for comprehension here in a minute, but you want to get to the point with your knowledge. When I talked about earlier, if you can teach it, then maybe you can actually be tested on it, right? And so constantly when you're getting new information, you want to assess if you need improvement, if you're competent in that information, as you're getting ready for the test, or if you're proficient. And the way that I know that I'm proficient is I test myself. I talk about it. And so I wanted to give you all a quick example of what I mean by talking about it. I'm going to have to do a new share here, if you just bear with me. And then I see a question came up, so I want to take that because it looked like a pretty long question. I want to read that. So I'm going to go in here again so I can share the. Okay, so we all should see. If you can't, please let me know. You should see my I did a YouTube, and I'll let you listen to a little bit of it.
Okay, we'll just go ahead and get going. This is James Bledsoe, and I'm going to discuss 4 specific leadership theory or leadership models in as much detail as I can fit into 7 to 9 minutes. Secondly, I'll talk a little bit about how I think I would go about implementing one of these. And this is a behavior that basically provides specific guidance on how to accomplish tasks. Another behavior is supportive, and this behavior shows concern for the followers and is basically friendly. Group functions without a leader, But if I were to think about or try to implement one of these models, I would have to go with.
Okay, so what I'm doing there, let me come back here, and I can't really see everybody, but what I'm doing there, I'm actually reading my notes. And so I'm just looking down and looking at my bullet points and then trying to talk about it for 3 or 4 minutes. And so that's why I'm kind of chopping through it. I'm just getting myself used to, okay, I see the terminology. Now, can I talk about it for a few minutes? And I'm just training myself so that if I feel like, I really don't know about that theory, I wasn't even able to talk about it for 5 seconds, then whatever I'm doing is not letting it stick there. So now I got to go back and do some other things. But again, sometimes, like I say, if you can teach it, then you can be tested on it. So those are one of the techniques that I use is using YouTube, because again, only I'm going to see the results unless, I share it in a webinar like I just did. I'm going to take a minute to read this question because. Yeah. So navigating, one of our attendees talk about navigating this whole thing based on life circumstances. And I tell you what, I really want to connect with you on that, because again, the whole thing is when you're navigating through how to be successful, again, knowing that you're not alone, that you have to reach out to someone and talk to someone. I struggle with my doctorate program, and I talk to my advisor and my professors all the time. From day one, I'm letting them know, I'm struggling, man. I wasn't able to get the reading done. Can I have an extra day? Or, is there more material I can look at that maybe is in video form? Because I'm not, I couldn't afford the book. I didn't get the book until 2 weeks into the semester, whatever it is. And I'm not coming up with excuses, but my whole thing is, I know I'm not alone. I know I can talk to my advisor. I know I can talk to the professor and let them know what my situation is. I think more professors are willing to help and accommodate when they hear things early than they are hearing things late in the semester. Because I'll tell you right now, professors are putting up their defense mechanisms late in the semester because that's when the people come to the professor that know that they're getting below a C, they're getting a D or F, and they're trying to look for some type of favor or edge or extra credit. And so you put up your defense mechanism. And so even when someone who really has a situation comes to a professor late in the semester, sometimes they don't get a chance to get heard. And so that's not always fair, but it happens. And so that's one thing that I want to stress is going to the professor early and letting the professor know what your situation is at that time. So now I'm going to get back to my PowerPoint there. And again, please someone let me know if you can't see it because I can't see everyone at this point. But okay, so if I can teach it, I can be tested on it. That's key. That's how I feel about that. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about reading for comprehension. And this is where I get into the nitty gritty stuff, I feel. And so when I talk about reading for comprehension, and this is going to sound like, well, James, where are you going to go with this? Well, think about this. When you have to do a lot of reading, when you think about, let me get the chat room back up. Does anyone ever read a page in a book? I'm talking about a school book, not a book that we love to read, in our recreation time, but a school book. You actually read a couple pages and then you come across a word that you don't know what it is. You don't know what it means. Do you ever come across a word you don't know what it is? Okay. I mean, we all do, right? Okay. What I've learned to do the hard way when I was finishing up my master's, yes, I look it up, Melissa. You've got to look it up, not later, right then and there. So back in the day in the old school, we had our dictionaries, the hard copy dictionary. But now there's other ways to get definitions on things, even if it's not even in the textbook. You can Google it, whatever. But I look it up right then, and I put that definition in my brain so that now I understand the sentence that it was used in. Because if you try to read a sentence and you see a word that you don't know, and then you try to read the paragraph and several paragraphs, you'll miss the meaning of all those paragraphs because of the one word that you didn't understand. It totally can change the whole complexity of that sentence, of that paragraph, of that page, right? When you know the definition of all the words that are in that passage. So sometimes you have to get yourself to the point where, you know what? I am learning the vocabulary as I go along. I know that my wife and daughter, they are speed readers. I don't know how they read as fast as they do. They, on their own, they read books outside of their schoolwork and stuff. And I'm like, no, you know what? I read stuff, and then I've got to understand the vocabulary. I've got to understand every terminology that is being used, because I got to get the essence of what's they're trying to convey on that page. And somebody may say, well, James, that just takes too long. But I'm going to show you a way to get around that in our next slide. But the one thing is always look up vocabulary words as you're going along so that you understand exactly what they were trying to get across to you. Put it back in context, right? So let me show you something. I'm going to go over what I feel about chapter outline, chapter quiz, learning targets. How many of you, do any of you, when you about to read a new chapter, before you start reading, do you look at the quiz at the end of the chapter? Do you look at the learning targets? Anybody? A yes or a no? I mean, just being honest, you asked me this 10 years ago, I would say no. I don't, even though they've been telling me this since high school. But I'm going to give you a suggestion for this. And so it involves, as much as you can, getting your book in a way that you can use it on Kindle, the Kindle book tools. Now, there may be other tools. I'm just going to use Kindle here for today to kind of illustrate this. But let me see if I can do a new share here and get my little Kindle book stuff open. You guys don't laugh at my use of some of these are free books, so don't laugh at my book collection. I'm going to open up leadership. Again, I can't see you all, so in the chat room, if you can give me a heads up that you can see a book. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, so here's why I like Kindle books as far as electronic copies. All right? It's because, let me get everything back in order over here. I love to look at the chapter outline. So for instance, let's go to whatever. I'll go to chapter 1. I read all this stuff. The chapter outline here. I want to know exactly where they want to take me. I look at all this stuff. I familiarize my stuff with my mind with all of this stuff. And even if it means I go forward in the book, right? And I look it up and see where it is. I need to acquaint myself with whatever it is that I'm about to embark on. So I'm familiarizing myself with the terminology, right away. Let me get something else here. I'm going to clear that. Another thing that I like to do, let me get rid of that. Chapter quiz. So even before I start reading, right, I'll go and I'll look for the chapter quiz, anything I can find. So I just went to the end of the chapter and I'm looking at the chapter summaries ahead of time. I mean, I used to think when I was in middle school or high school that I remember my teacher said, don't look at the chapter summary. Don't look at the quiz. Wait till you finish reading. And I'm like, I think I kept that like all the way through high school and my undergrad of, I can't look at the back and I finally had to say to myself, wait a minute, man. No, look at the back. Look at the summary, right? See where you're going to go. Familiarize yourself, with how they are summarizing, the different pages within the chapter, right? So this is the chapter summary. They made it available to me. I see that the chapter summary is organized to answer the 11 learning outcomes for this chapter. So now I know exactly what the learning outcomes are. I know I go to the review questions. I see where this is going. I see the key terminology. So that's going to be important. And it even gives me the page numbers for the terminology. So before I even start reading the chapter, I know the terminology. And if I haven't heard of normative leadership before model, for instance, I'm looking over here at normative leadership model, I'll look it up. I'll Google it just to see what Google says, what people out there say. I want to know the definition according to this book. Don't get me wrong, but I want to build context to it, right? And so I love that that Kindle Books allows us to navigate through this way. Another thing that I love to do is my wife and I are doing advanced degrees together. She's at Eastern Washington, and I'm doing through another university, working on my doctorate. But I love how Kindle lets you take notes so that I can highlight something and make it a note. Does anyone use Kindle in this way, making their own notes? I'm looking at the chat room here. Okay. So, I'll make notes this way because, and you can color code them, if you want. So I can come here and, if I want to color code them for this or whatever. But what I love is that now all the stuff that I have decided is important, some of this stuff I'm color coding is too long, but maybe I want to color code something that's just maybe a sentence that I think like, whoa, you know what? I'm writing a paper and I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to, do an in-text citation, but I'm writing a paper and I'm going to come back to that. And so I'm going to come back and I'm going to color code that as orange because that's something I'm going to use in my paper, And so that way, when you go to the very right side, it tells you what page you took it from. And then what I love is you can click on this button, export. And now you're exporting all the things, you can save it here at the top, but you're exporting all the things that you put into your notes. Right? So, yeah, as far as knowing that the textbooks you can put on, if you can get a textbook on Amazon, you can put it on Kindle. So with my textbooks for my doctorate class, I always look on Amazon first and see if it's there. And if it is, I download it to my Kindle, my virtual Kindle, my Kindle app, I guess it is. So Whenever I can get a book on Amazon, I'm gonna use it that way. Let's see if I can go back and act like I know what I'm doing here. The other feature I wanted to show you with the whole taking notes thing is, let's see if I can get back in here and find something else. Okay. Oh, well, with the notes, I also can make my own flashcards. I showed you how to export the notes, but you can also make your own flashcards here. I don't know what this, okay. So, in the days when we use paper, whatever, I want this to be a flashcard. I hit the green check, the green check arrow. Yeah, I want that to be a flashcard. I'm gonna skip this. Nah, I decided that's not important. I don't need that either. Yep, I need this. That was important. So I'm making my own set of flashcards just by what I highlighted, in the book. So again, just some quick ways that you can use Kindle when you can buy your textbooks through Amazon. I'm always going to look to get things there as soon as I can. Melissa, that's just, I talked with my wife about this feature. We were sitting on the sofa reading our books, and she said the same thing. You know what? This is blowing my mind. I didn't know this was there, because my wife was sitting there writing notes, every little note, like rewriting it in her notebook. And I'm like, why are you doing all that? Why don't you just highlight it and make your own notes? Anyway, fun stuff. So just sharing ideas on that. So I hope that helps. I'm going to come back and do a new share here. Back to my screen here. Just a sec. And okay. All right. So here's my next slide. Reading stamina and speed. Now, this may help all of you. This may help one person. I don't know. Well, I'm going to try this out. So again, I can't see you all, but I want to make sure you see my reading for comprehension chart that I put together. In the chat room, if you can let me know. Okay, I see. Let me go. All right. Very good. Reading for comprehension. All right. Now, this chart that I put together, let's just say it's a Monday, and the professor has said to everyone, read chapters 1 through 12. I'm immediately going to look at how many pages that is. That's 360 pages, because chapters 1 through 12, each chapter has 30 pages, hypothetically, right? So that's 360 pages, I'll say to myself. Now, I already know what my reading speed is. And how do I know? I went on and read 2 or 3 pages, and I saw that it's taking me on average about 3 minutes to read a page. Sometimes I go back and look up a word, but so ordinarily it might take me a minute and a half or something like that. But because some of the words I'm having to look up, it's taking me about 3 minutes, maybe 4 minutes. Well, okay. So if you know if I know my average speed of the book that I'm reading, not just in general, the book that I'm reading is taking me 3 minutes per page. And I know I got 360 pages to read. Here's the other part. I also have to know, you have to know, what's your reading stamina? In any given day, how long are you willing to read to where you're like, you know what? I can read for comprehension for about 2 hours. If I'm going to sit down for the day and read, I can only really do maybe 2 hours. And then after that, I start to lose my focus. My head hurts. I got things to do. I got chores, whatever. Well, if you know your reading stamina, I'm calling it stamina, is about 120 minutes, right? Let's say this is me. I'm 2 hours. I know I'm 2 hours. So I got to read every day to stay on pace. But if you divide now 3 minutes into 120 minutes, and 3 minutes represents 1 page, then you're going to come back, and I know that when I do sit down to read, I can do about 40 pages in a day, and then I'm done. I'm not going to do any more. My brain is shot, right? So if I know I've got to read by down here where it says the midterm exam that's going to be on chapters 1 through 12, then I know it's going to take me 9 days to get through these 360 pages to the point where I'm not just competent, I'm proficient. I know this stuff. I can teach it, right? So I now have to look at, okay, when am I going to read? According to, my stamina and speed. So do you want to just stack up all the days here? I'm going to try to get in these 9 days. Let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, because that gets back to the whole, how does the brain work? Do you want to do that? No. So I'm going to say, okay, I found out on Monday. So guess what? I'm going to do this. I'm gonna get 3 done there, and I'm gonna get 3 done here, and then maybe I go to the 3rd week and I got it here. Now, all this is hypothetical because maybe you have a quiz before the midterm. I get that, right? But the whole thing is sometimes when you have a lot of reading to do, you got to know what your speed and stamina is based on the book that you're reading. Some books are easier to read than others, right? We can all agree on that. But you got to now start to plot out when you're going to do this. And we're just talking about one subject. If you're taking 2, 3, 4 different classes, you got to figure out how many pages do I have to read, and really be realistic on how long is it going to take me to get through all these pages, right? And how long am I willing to read every day? So again, if I've got 3 subjects, and let's say I got to get those 3 subjects into those 120 minutes, that I said I can read a day, then I got to figure out, okay, I'm only going to get maybe 20 pages done per subject per day, so the math gets fun, I think, but it has really helped me pace myself in terms of getting reading done so that I'm not spending the whole day Saturday or the whole day Sunday doing reading, knowing that if I read for 6 hours, I'm going to have burnout. That's just me. And I know some of us have really hectic schedules, but there's some times where I'll get up at 5 and I'll read for 30 minutes. And then during my lunch break, I'll read for 45 minutes, and then before, maybe after I come home from work or, after I move from my desk to the dining room, because this is my office, okay, then maybe I'm going to read for another hour. But the whole thing is I know ahead of time, based on what I got to do as far as, or get ready for midterm exams, quizzes, whatever, I've already plotted out how I'm going to get this reading done or how I'm going to write the papers, when I'm going to write the papers, but I'm really going to be realistic about my time and plot it all out based on my ability to read and digest the information. And that's going to be different for everybody, right? It's going to be different for everybody. So I'm getting kind of long-winded and I'm coming to the end here. I'm not in a rush. I know we promised we'd stop at 7:30. I'm going to stay here until all the questions are answered, but are there any questions or things that you'd like me to kind of touch on? And I don't mind if people ask their question. They don't have to. I don't mind if they just ask it, unmute themselves.
Yeah, if you have a question, please feel free to unmute yourself or just write it in the chat, either way.
And yeah, breaking this down, that's what I wanted to do. I just don't want to give you a bunch of tips, the stuff that everybody gives everybody. It's just like, here's why I do it this way, everybody, because half my time I'm a career development coordinator. And too often we will say to students, oh, if you don't know what you want to do in life, just explore. Just explore. If you don't know what your major is, go explore. And I got tired of telling students that 15 years ago because we don't give them the framework to explore, right? So I've put together curriculum that helps people to explore majors and to explore career options, not just occupations, career fields. So that's what I think is important, breaking it down and showing people how, giving them a framework. Okay. Do we have a question there?
Yeah, I have a question. I was just curious, as far as reading, I decided to use hard books this semester. I've bounced back and forth, and it's kind of weird not knowing where you're at in the book with the digital books. So I like it old school, but my biggest question is I start strong taking notes and reading, and within 2 weeks, I'm completely behind and burnt out because I end up transcribing the entire book. Do you have any tips for taking realistic notes?
Yes, I do. And I wish I would have had one of my books here. Okay. What I try to do to kind of like train myself not to take, these copious notes is if I'm reading, I've got the book on, I've got the hard copy. I'll put my notes, old school style. I'll put little buzzwords on the side of each page that kind of remind me what each paragraph is about. So it's almost like I'm describing the paragraph in my own words. I'm just summarizing it. So what are they really trying to say? They're trying to say basically, theories are theories, but it's not anything until you put it into practice. I'll try to summarize it in a way that I'm not saying slang, but in a way that I would summarize it, because that's going to stay in my head easier if I'm putting it in my words. So I kind of, in the book, I'm not underlining every word like that, but I use the side of the pages to kind of just quickly summarize in a few words what that paragraph is talking about. And you'll find that it's easy to go back and find things in the book when you're reading your writing and the way you would describe it, not just writing these long, copious notes on another notepad. That's tough. But when I can flip through the book and I know what each paragraph is kind of talking about, it just helps me to connect the dots. It just helps me to connect the dots. Is there something that maybe requires a little more feedback than that? What I just said?
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. I would, that's my next thing when it comes to notes, is because that way you're going to keep yourself from writing stuff that's way too long, and it's going to be hard to remember that. So that way you can get through the book quicker, just reading through it and just jotting down some things on the side of the page and getting familiarized with, what's the big picture? Where is this chapter trying to take me? That's the thing that I've realized is, where is this chapter trying to take me? Where is it trying to take me? That's important. That's why I go back and read the outlines, the summaries. It's not saying that I'm cheating like I used to think when I was in elementary school, not to read the back of the book or not to read no, it's just, you know what? I need to see the big picture, where this is going. It's just like if you're in an art class and the teacher starts the class with a new art project and they don't show you the finished product, it's going to be hard for you to, stay within, where the teacher wants to go. So if I have an art project and I want everybody to do, I show them the finished product. Okay, this is what it's going to look like. All right, so let's get going. Step by step is going to be easier because everyone knows where we're going. So again, it's very important to read, I think, the back of the chapters and get all that information so you see where things are going. Any other questions? I'm sorry, I can't see the questions as quickly as I should, but.
No worries. No, I don't see any more questions.
Okay. I know you have a lot of phenomenal people in the global campus as far as advisors and counselors, but I'm here as well. I'm part of the Cougar team. I'll help anybody, anywhere, anytime, any place. You saw in the beginning, if we go back to my original slide here, and then I'm going to try to share it just so that in case you want to take not a picture of me, but my contact information. If you want my contact information, I use Google Office when I'm at my desk, so it rings right to my desktop computer, but then you can leave messages at my office phone. You can email me. I'm really good with emails. But honestly, my boss doesn't like my hours, but this is just how I roll, everybody. We're in a new normal. So I'm 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., Monday through Friday, and 12 to 5 on Saturdays and Sundays. So I'm always available, whether it's Zoom, email, or phone call, just for feedback. And I don't care what campus you're in. I'm here for everybody.